Oh my goodness.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to the podcast. Today, I have a special guest, someone who I've collaborated with in the past a little bit. We've talked a lot, and we always laugh and we always have great conversations. And we'll probably not be as spicy as we normally are when when we're not recording our conversations. Um,
You might have to edit that.
you see, I'm not editing that, Harmeen. That's staying in there. So, Harmeen Johal, expert in recruitment, really interesting human being, and I wanted to have a conversation with her. So, thanks, Harmeen. Thanks for being with us. Maybe just a quick note I wanted to say, or I wanted to mention to everyone is that Harmeen's been doing recruitment for what, over 15 years, 10 years, Harmeen?
Almost up to like 14 years now, yeah.
Yeah, and
We
Harmeen
get
comes from
rounded.
recruitment from a really different aspect of how I came to recruitment. A lot of you are probably saying, Paul, recruitment? What are you talking about? Well, I do recruitment. I do mostly sales consulting, but I've come to recruitment through the sales consulting portion because I was evaluating people, working with people. Some of my clients started saying, "Hey, Paul, can you recruit people for us?" And I kind of find a passion for it, and I have a specialty in sales recruitment. And Harmeen and I were talking. I don't know, when did we talk for the first time, Harmeen? It was probably,
A
I don't know,
couple months ago, it was like in March, I think.
yeah. And I felt like we were coming from different planets, and it was so exciting to me because it was like, wow, she does it like this, and I do
Yeah.
it like that, and we're so different, but we also hire different roles often, right, Harmeen?
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah,
specialize mostly in accounting and finance, administrative roles,
yeah.
HR. But I have to say, I will just mention a little bit about myself. So as
Yes,
you mentioned,
absolutely. That's what we're here.
so in the industry for almost 15 years now, started really with an agency recruitment. So that was a little bit different compared to you, obviously. And then I recently launched my own company back in March called Talencia. And I was mentioning that I was specialized mostly in accounting and finance and administration, but I've come to realize that I can pretty much headhunt anything, right? So I
Yes.
think as
Yeah.
a headhunter, and I think it's the same for you. I know
Yep.
that you've touched on different roles as well, but yeah, as a headhunter, I think yes, it's good to have specializations, but if you're truly a good headhunter and you have a really big network, I think, and you have good resources, you can recruit pretty much anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. The reason, for me, the reason I've specialized is because if I stay in my core, which is sales, it's a lot easier for me. The tools that I have permit me to do it a lot faster, and I've got a lot of automation myself. But like I said, I'm not, my business per se does sales recruiting, but it's really because of the whole sales experience. So it's kind of interesting. And I also do it from I do a lot of automation, which you do differently. So
Oh
I
yeah.
found that fascinating. And today though, what I wanted to talk about, and I have a few questions for you,
Yes.
and you can tell me. And one of the questions I had for you, because everyone's talking about it, and I have some opinions on it, but more. My opinions are more based on the fact that I don't know where this can take us. Everyone's
Hmm.
talking about AI all the time, and I don't know, like me, and I want your opinion on this too, but I'll just, quickly I don't want to put you on the spot. So just to tell you where I'm coming from, I find AI such a strange idea, particularly in recruiting, because I have a hard time imagining at this point, and maybe I'm naive, but I have a hard time imagining at this point an AI bot doing as good a job in a
Hmm.
conversation, asking interview questions and going through all of what we go through, like thinking, oh, okay, are they telling us the truth? Will they be a good fit with my client?
Yeah.
And that's where I personally, maybe I'm naive, but I personally have a hard time imagining AI in the next couple of years being able to do that as well as we can. And I was wondering, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think that AI will be able to replace recruiters, that's for sure. At the end of the day, we are dealing with human beings. I think that there will be ways of going around it if candidates start understanding how to really formulate their CVs to make sure that they're not being blocked by certain companies when companies are screening the CVs. A lot of these large public companies are using ATS systems, and oftentimes the companies can kind of choose their screening requirements. I'm talking really large public companies. I'm not necessarily talking about SMEs. Um, But I do have an example. My husband actually went through this just last year, where he came from agency with over 12 years of experience in recruitment, and he decided he wanted to leave the agency world and go towards more of a corporate recruiter. And he was applying on positions at large public firms, and he was getting rejection after rejection for honestly no reason. It wouldn't even make
Okay.
sense. And in one of these large manufacturing companies, public companies here in Montreal, I knew the HR, one of the head HR, and I sent her a message and said, "Hey, just letting you know, you guys rejected my husband's profile. Take a look at it.
Yeah.
What happened?" And she was shocked. She said, "Oh my gosh, this is our ATS system that's not screening the candidates, that is basically screening the candidates due to keywords. And your husband does not have enough keywords on his CV to get him through to the next level. Or they're picking up words like, he might have had manager or management on his CV, so they might have thought he was overqualified, so they were overlooking
Ah,
him."
okay.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of my idea of AI. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of the actual
Yeah.
interviewing and stuff, I mean, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's like way, I don't know.
And what
I
you're saying now too is that even at that point, it's kind of failing because for example, I know it's anecdotal,
You're
but
losing out
in
on
your, yeah,
candidates.
they're losing out on a candidate like your husband. Did he find a job, by the way?
He did, but let me tell you, through referral. At the
Okay.
end of the day, through
Okay.
human connection. So
Yeah.
for me, I really feel that like recruitment, as much as yes, there are some tools in AI. I use a couple of tools in AI at the moment for my recruitment.
Yep.
So the two ways I utilize it is I will generate a job description through
Yep.
ChatGPT
Yep.
if I need to, or if I need
Yep.
to enhance one or shorten one down.
Yeah.
And the other way I use AI is really through my approach with passive candidates when I'm headhunting. So I noticed I used to do my own messaging, let's say on LinkedIn, when I was
Yeah.
sourcing a candidate and headhunting a candidate that was passive.
Okay.
And my personal message just didn't seem to cut it.
Okay.
And then I realized when I was using LinkedIn's AI's generated message that they were offering to me, and then it would work. All of a sudden, I would have this great return. And I realized, okay, this is a really great tool right now because I'm trying to use this kind of human, kind of approach, but it doesn't seem to be working so well. Or maybe my approach is not so human,
Yeah.
possibly. And then, LinkedIn and Indeed have been really great at generating the AI messaging. So those are the two ways that I use AI at the moment.
Oh, that's great. So and I'm like you too. I use it to a certain extent, and it's interesting because it's a conversation that's going to obviously progress a lot in the next couple of years, and it'll be interesting. But I'm happy. That's a great take, and I have essentially the same experience with it in using it in little bits and bytes here, and using it for writing out the ad that you're putting out there to attract the
Yeah.
candidates makes a huge difference. Hey, I want to back up a little bit, Harmeen, because I realized, and I want to talk about this, and I wanted us to warm us up on a question, but maybe I'd like you, and we've talked about this a little bit before, and I don't want it to sound clunky, but and I found the first time I spoke to you, I found this really fascinating. Tell me, like, the version you're comfortable in a couple of minutes. Tell me how you came to starting your own recruitment business. Because I know you were in an agency, and
Hmm.
I know a few years ago, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I want the audience to hear, or the listeners, the viewers, to hear from you how your mindset of saying, I'm in this position, I'm doing this for someone else, I'm gonna now do it for myself. And I want you, I'm gonna point it out, but I want you to tell us about the things that stressed you out and
Hmm.
what prompted you to say, you know what, it's gonna be okay, I'm gonna try it out.
Yeah, so as mentioned, in the industry for almost 14 years,
Yeah,
and 13 out of those 14 years, I did work for a large public firm,
yeah,
multinational agency recruitment, where I did move up a little bit. I was director towards the end. I had done strategic sales there. Mostly, I was specialized in recruitment there. And I was good. I was one of the top sellers for sure.
I have no
Top
problem
billers,
believing
as we
that.
call. Yeah, so and I made quite a lot of money, right? I mean, you can make
Yep,
quite a lot of money even coming from agency when you're
yep,
working for someone. And over the years, I often had the same territory. So which was what, I don't need to go into that, but so anyways, all to say that I had created a really large network. And yes, I specialized in accounting and finance, but I also did some engineering. I started in administrative support. So I touched on different aspects of recruitment throughout those 12 years at this multinational company. Um, and then I did hit a bit of a wall after having children. I
Okay.
had two children back to back, two baby boys. And when I did go back, it was a very busy time for the company, and I ended up going on a burnout.
Okay.
So I ended up just kind of hitting a wall. I had my best year ever. I think it was like 2022, best year ever, top sales, made the most money I've ever made. It was wonderful. And then all of a sudden, I kind
No
of
energy.
crashed.
Yeah.
And I realized there was a few aspects of it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you are in these large public companies, a lot of times there can be a bit of a toxic environment. Sometimes with the sales environment can be a little bit toxic. There is
Hey, don't pick on sales. I'm just kidding.
there is that competition piece,
Yes.
right? I mean, there
Yeah.
is that competition. And unfortunately, it does happen that there's going to be a bit of a toxicity or, there's competition within the organization with your own colleagues that you're supposed to feel like, a really big collaboration. And there was like a lacking some of that collaboration. Also, a bit of a lack of recognition I felt on for myself. I really felt like I deserved more recognition. I was
Okay.
looking for that next promotion. I felt like I proved myself. But unfortunately, even if you think that's your timeline to grow, you're waiting
Yep.
on someone else to say, "Oh yeah, well maybe we should promote her
Yep.
again," or whatever it is. So at that point, I did take a few months off. I needed to kind of reset and kind of I realized that I was working many, many hours, and I realized that I wasn't giving enough time to my family either.
Yeah.
So that had kind of affected me. And I thought, you know what, I'll take a few months off. Let me just recenter, figure out what's really important to me in my life. Not really almost a midlife crisis. I mean, I was what, 38, 39 at the time when it happened. So I guess kind of like a midlife kind of situation. Um, and after that, I decided to return to the same company and I removed myself from the recruitment and I went into strategic sales of
Okay.
national accounts. That was super fun. I mean, it was a
Okay.
really great position that I held there, but I really miss that adrenaline piece. I really love recruitment. I'm super passionate about recruitment. I love the people side of things. I love matching, I love understanding the client's needs, understanding what the candidate wants, and, making that perfect match. That's like, you know, to me, I just love it so much. Um, so I decided to leave the large public company
Yeah.
and go on to a smaller firm in recruitment. And I don't want to get into a huge story about it, but I mean, I did really great over there as well. I was only there for about, I think, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Really knocked it out of the park in terms of sales. And then I went, actually, it started in January. I had gone for coffee with a colleague, an old colleague of mine,
Yeah.
um, who asked me, I just don't understand why you haven't gone out on your own yet. And literally, that was such a pivotal moment for me.
Yeah.
I had never even thought it was possible, to be
Oh,
honest. And how
really?
sad, right?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
limitations that we kind of
In
put
your
on
mind,
ourselves.
you always had to be working for someone else
I think
or
it was that sheltered, I also come from a family of, both my parents worked like many, many years for the same companies, always worked for people, always very hardworking, but they
Mhm.
were not entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Although my brother, who Sean, he's an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So obviously, I had him as an influence as well. I just never thought it was possible for
Did
myself.
Sean encourage you to start your own business too? He must have.
So after the coffee chat that I had with this
Yeah.
old colleague, I remember going home and I remember calling him right away and
Yeah.
saying, I kind of have these two options in front of me. Either I could join this colleague who,
Yeah.
secretly she was kind of
Yeah.
wondering, hey, would you maybe want to
Yeah. Would you come
come
with me?
join my
Yeah.
team?
Yeah.
Or, do I work for her and start her
Yeah.
division, or do I just go out on my own because I
Yeah.
have the network for it and I know that I'm capable? And to be honest, I did kind of like a bit of an analysis of my last
Yeah.
6 months at the previous company. And when I saw that basically I brought in all the business, the majority of it, I brought in maybe 80, 85% of the business, and
No
I recruited
brainer.
I recruited every position by
Yeah.
myself, no help from anyone. So I kind of realized, you know what, I need to give this a try.
Okay. And
And
was Sean encouraging of you? Where was he pushing you?
Sean was really, I mean, Sean, right? He's very
Yes.
good at kind of
Sean,
laying
by the way,
down
everyone all is a business consultant. Sean Johal, he's Harmeen's sister. They're both
brother.
business people. Yeah. Older brother, right? Much older,
Yes,
right,
older
Harmeen?
brother. That's it. So basically he was, he's really good at being able to like put both cards on the table and kind
Yeah,
of giving me the pros and cons of, well, this is what's going to happen if you
yeah,
decide to go on your own and this is what's going to happen if
yeah.
you want to work for someone else. And so it was really interesting and I feel like I literally slept on it that night and the next day my mind was made and I was just so excited and I was like, "Oh my God, you know what? I have to do this. I think I need to work for myself."
Yeah,
I need that flexibility. I enjoy working on my own. I'm really good as a one woman show. I don't know, maybe eventually I will hire someone in the future.
yeah.
It's not really part of my plans at the moment. I just really enjoy working alone and I'm very good at it. So that's
Well,
kind of
that's
how it
great.
came
That's
about.
great. It's good. Full disclosure, I remember Sean telling me that you were considering this before I even met you. And I remember him saying, I hope she goes in that direction because he really believed in you. So
Yeah.
I mean, you probably know this, but it did come through me at one point, and I remember him really believing you and saying you were great at this stuff. So it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question for you. Back into recruitment. Well, a question, something I want us to address, and I talked about you about this offline before, and you're like, "Oh, this is weird. I don't want to talk about this." And it was the way I saw it as the strangest experience, or the most interesting experience, or an experience that stands out as a recruiter, like something we've both done. I've hired a lot of salespeople. I've also hired a lot on the outside. I've got a few
Mhm.
clients. Actually, little parentheses. I've got a few clients where I've gone really far off. And again, I'll start the ball rolling on this one, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I've got one client who I started doing sales recruitment for, and the guy says, "Oh, you've done a really good job." And he says, "You know us so well." And I was also, because I do coaching, I was coaching one of the owners, and he said, "Would you help us? Because we're a little disorganized in our recruiting. Would you help me hire a coordinator?" I said, "Sure." So I hired an assistant coordinator. And then he says, "Would you hire a chemist?" Like, a chemist.
Hmm.
Crazy, a chemist. I don't know anything about chemistry. So I kind of applied all of my automated stuff, and I went in there and said, "Okay, I can't, I'm not an expert in chemistry. I can't talk about that stuff, but I can find out if the person's a good human being, and if they're reliable, and if they're honest, and if they have the proper background." We did some research, we put an evaluation together, we asked this person, and we ended up hiring this chemist who, I'm very happy to say, a year and a half later is still with this company. And
Hmm.
for me, it was a strange experience because it was so far out of my wheelhouse, and
Right.
it was almost scary because, like I'm interested in chemistry. I'm interested and this person was developing formulas for obviously an industrial process. And if it was very fascinating, but I knew my limitations. And I think the reason it was okay for me is I was very honest with my client, saying, "I can do
Hmm.
these things, I can't do these, so you're going to have to help me with those." And we brought it together, and we ended up doing
I'm
something that
curious
was
to
really
know,
good.
how did you end up finding the person? Was it a headhunting situation or did you do just an active recruitment job
Uh,
posting and
yeah.
you had some applicants?
Correct. As you know, I think we'll talk about it because offline, and I'll say it live, but it's a great question. Um, Most of what I do is just, postings on Indeed. It's an inbound
Yeah.
process. I don't do a lot of headhunting. I'm doing a little bit of headhunting now for a position in the US, a sales position that's very specific that I know really, really well because
Hmm.
it's my background. And
Yeah.
it's a sort of it's a senior sales position for a company I've been working with since pre-COVID for almost 6 years. So it's almost like I'm part of that company. But in
Yeah.
general, it's all inbound. And in this case, it was inbound. We put an ad up, we wrote the ad, we put some specific things that we wanted, and the people came to us. And we had quite a
Which is
few
great.
applicants. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So
Okay.
tell me an experience that maybe threw you off, and it doesn't have to be strange, but it's just something that you said, yeah, this was really different. And including your old position, if it could be a weird interview, it could be whatever.
It was so it's really funny. I was discussing with my husband who's in recruitment, one of my good friends who's also in recruitment, and I'll be honest, I don't have a great memory. So like I don't know. I don't remember anything particularly strange about my
Okay.
recruitment. And also mostly because I really did concentrate in accounting and
Yeah.
finance. And I
Those
guess I was
people, it was
lucky
pretty
that I
straight.
didn't have so many, sorry.
those people are pretty
What was
straight.
that? Yeah, that's it. Very black and white.
Yeah.
We call them what the brun. That's what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
say. The
Brown socks.
But yeah, that's it. So
Yeah.
I didn't. But at the same time, okay. Anyways, the two that kind of like struck me, maybe not strange or out of the ordinary necessarily, but definitely memorable. Um, One is really linked to the power of connection, and it's something that I had recently posted about. But when I was at this multinational company, I was recruiting internally for this agency. I used to often recruit for their internal accounting and finance team, and they were hiring for someone in accounts receivables. I met the perfect candidate on the spot while the candidate was in front of me. I remember calling the manager up and saying, I have your person. She's been sitting in front of me. And the offices were literally, uh, I don't know, 500 meters away from each other. The head office was in Ville Saint Laurent somewhere, and our office was really not far. And I literally was like, I'm sending her over to you, like now. Can you meet her now? Pretty much. And they met her, they hired her, they loved her.
On the
Fast
spot.
forward 12 years, she still was with the company for the whole
Okay.
12 years that I was there. And this was at the beginning of my career with this company.
Yeah.
And she grew with the organization as I did. And we always stayed in touch. And she was a manager towards the end of it. And then unfortunately, last year, she did get laid off.
Ah.
Um, and she went with another company. And a few months ago, a couple months ago, actually, just really recently, she reached out to me needing my expertise, wanting to work with me to recruit for her team.
Ah.
So, she didn't
Yeah.
call back the other agency
Yeah.
where she
Yeah.
was for 12 years.
Yeah.
She called me.
Yeah.
So I really feel like this power of
That's a
connection, this
great
power of
example. What do you
memory.
mean I don't have a good memory? That's an amazing
Yeah,
example.
well, this one, it really struck me because, I mean, obviously, it's a very proud moment for
Yeah.
me that I felt like I had such an impact on her. She knew what a good
Yeah.
recruiter I was, and she decided to trust me with
Yeah.
another mandate for another organization, putting herself on the line as well. Obviously, she's bringing me in to recruit for them. And we did successfully end up placing someone. So that was, I don't know, very memorable for me.
Which leads me to wanting to ask you something else. So if we take ourselves out of the equation, because this is not this is not an ad for you or me, but if we take ourselves out of the equation, what do you think a client or a business or a prospect, when they're thinking of hiring someone to help them recruit,
Yeah.
let's say they're doing it for the first time. What do you suggest they look for? What do you like? Let's say they're in Australia and we can recruit out there or wherever. And what should they look for? What do you think they should look for in a recruiter to have success? I have some views too, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, I mean, it's very difficult at first. I think the client, the company will have to shop around a bit to see, okay, I think the fit is very important.
Yes.
To have someone who will take the time to meet the company, to meet with them, to ask the right questions, to get to know them, to understand their culture, understand what they're looking for, but also someone that's going to be able to guide and consult them, which I know that
Yeah.
you're an expert at as well, right? So I think that's something that we both have going for us is that we're very good at guiding and consulting, and we have a lot of market insight.
So
So
so from their perspective, it's look for someone who you fit with, someone who you can have, who understands your business, who understands what you're looking for more than just a position.
I mean, I'm not sure if they realize that at the very beginning, but once they meet with the right recruiter, they'll be like, this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
This is the person I need to work with. So I think that it might come with a bit of time that, there's plenty of companies that have had bad experiences with the recruiters, but the ones that have the good experience with the recruiter, generally it comes down to communication.
Yeah.
Transparency, super important. Transparency, being able to have that honest conversation and be able to tell the client, for example, your salary is not within the market requirements. You're going to have trouble finding someone if you don't maybe upgrade the salary, or if you're flexible to take someone more junior at the salary you're looking for example. So I think that it's really about guidance. There is some expertise in there. However, I was thinking about this because, specialization, yes, someone can come towards me. They know I'm very good with accounting and finance. But like you, I recently had a situation where a client came up to me, wanted help with a recruitment for a financial analyst role. No problem. We filled the role within a couple of weeks. Then a week later, she says, Harmeen, I have another mandate for you. And I'm like, okay, what is it? and it's something called a quotation specialist.
And you're like,
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, can you please send me the job description? It's not something I've ever
yeah,
recruited
yeah,
before. Look at the job description. I'm like, I don't understand what this is, but I'm gonna find it for you.
yeah,
And I do have some expertise with my headhunting. So, making sure I ask the right questions, making
yeah,
sure I understand what they're looking for, what requirements they're looking for, how flexible are they. And then I headhunted and I successfully filled the role within, I think, a week and a half. And they just
yeah.
gave me
That's
a
one thing.
second role.
I gotta
So,
press pause there. That's one thing that amazes me about you is how quick you are. Like you've said to me on a few roles that you can fill certain, I guess, more junior roles like within like a week sometimes, right? You're talking about an assistant role that you're like filling in within a few days, right?
oh yeah. No,
That's
I think speed is really, I think one of my old managers used to call me like boom, boom, boom. Like it was literally like one of those like within 1 week. Normally it would be like order intake on the Monday, presenting candidates on the Tuesday, interviews on the Wednesday, offer on the
Harmeen,
Thursday, offer accepted Friday.
this is not normal. Like you're not going to tell me, oh, every recruiter is like this. Like you had that nickname. Like how fast were the other recruiters in your company?
I mean, there was a couple of that I would
Yeah.
say that could keep up with my pace, not to
Okay.
not to toot my horn, but for sure I think it's there's also an aspect of being organized, right? I mean, if you're well
Yes.
organized, and if you're efficient, and if you know what you're doing, I mean, there's no reason why you can't fill a role pretty quickly. So, I
Yes.
mean, it's about, I
But
don't
there are
know,
some
being
roles that
speed
take
and
more
efficient.
time. Like if you're looking for, I don't know, a senior, like when I'm looking for a senior salesperson and it's very specific,
Yeah,
with very specific experience, I know sometimes it's going to take longer.
yeah.
So for sure, like there, there are some caveats there. If you're looking for a president for a company, it
I
might take a
agree
lot. Yeah.
entirely. Like right now, I'm working on two confidential roles, controller and a financial analyst position for a company that we're not allowed to post the position.
Oh my
We want
God.
it to be completely confidential.
Not
And
gonna.
this is full headhunting. This takes time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I agree with you that yes, the headhunting roles that are a bit more specific
Can take longer.
can take time, but yeah.
And there's another question that comes up in my head. And just to to just chime in myself on how I think clients should choose someone to help them recruit or help them hire. Ask them questions, right? Ask them how they function. Ask them how they work. Ask them how their processes. Like go into detail. Like there's no secrets here that recruiting agency or that recruiter or that person that you're helping that's going to help you hire. Ask them how they're going to do it and what their guarantees are and what their fees
Mhm.
are and what it's
And
based on.
what
Like,
their onboarding is. I think this is
yeah,
something that you and I
yeah,
have spoken about quite a bit. It's
yes,
super
yeah,
important to
yeah.
understand what their onboarding
Well, some
process
people don't
can
even
be.
offer onboarding, right? So here's your candidate,
Right.
do what you can. But you and I,
And who they're reporting to, right? I mean,
yes,
this is something you and I have also spoken about
yeah,
before is,
yeah,
making sure that you understand what the manager is looking for.
yeah,
What type of management style do they have? Are they a
yeah.
micromanager or not? And, so
Well,
yeah,
let's hope they're not a micromanager. But, which brings me to my
still
another
exists.
question, and this is so true. Onboarding, remuneration, coaching, all of the things that are going to be important for that employee to have success. Because it's one thing to find a great candidate, but if the company they're going into is not the greatest, then you have to readjust. Which brings me to my next very sensitive topic and this is something. I haven't had to do a lot, but it's happened a few times. But have you ever not taken a mandate or fired a client because the values or the way they work is just so different than you?
So unfortunately, that actually happened a couple of months ago.
Okay. No names.
No names, absolutely not. But I was working with a client, and I quickly realized after, having the conversations, understanding what it was that they were looking for, trying to work with them to adjust some of their requirements, sorry, some of it had to do with maybe the salary not being up to par, or, they were looking for someone that had the experience, but that was very junior. They
Yeah.
were kind of looking for a certain age demographic, but that already came with all of the experience, but they weren't paying more than what the market was paying. So, at that point, why would, let's say, a junior controller leave one company to go to the other? I mean, there has to be something in it for them at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And after sending a few very good profiles, realizing that there was one person specifically within the process that seemed to be blocking,
Yeah.
that wasn't allowing these candidates to get to the next step to meet with the president. Some candidates that I felt should have gotten the chance to meet with the president that I think the president might have liked, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, this one person was kind of just like blocking the process. So after about maybe them meeting about five candidates, which is quite a lot, right, in our
Yep.
industry. I mean, we don't like sending 10, 20 profiles. That's not what we do, right? I mean, we send five maximum, like niche, very good profiles.
Yep.
I just quickly realized, wait a second, I don't think this is going to work
Not gonna
here.
work.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm being blocked. They were refusing to meet with me at their office. I told them I needed a meeting at their office. I want to come see your office. I want to come understand what you guys are doing. I would even love to be able to meet the president, who this person will, be collaborating with. And it was like, a lot of blockages. And
Mm.
I think companies need to understand that if you want to work with a recruiter, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And it's really
Yep.
important for us to truly understand what it is that you guys are looking for. And we have to go visit on site sometimes, or we have to, we do a lot of virtual stuff these days, but visiting on site is amazing and it changes the perspective of everything. Being able to see, where is this person going to work? What is, even just what does the cafeteria look like? There's like little
Yep.
perks that maybe
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
company
That
will not
help
tell us
you
about.
that help you talk to the candidate, right? Oh, I
Yeah, like
saw the
selling features
offices.
too, right?
Yeah, exactly. The selling features to the individual who's, if they're looking for a closed office, well, then you can mention that. If they're looking for an open office, you can mention
Exactly.
that. You can mention the character of the president. No, I totally agree with you. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Um, I guess in my world, what's really interesting, and I think you do it as well, is I really take the time to get to know my client to understand what the objective of the hire is. And what do I mean by that? I
Mhm.
mean, if I'm helping you find a salesperson most of the time or another position, like I helped one person find a technician and an assistant, it's always what's this role? How is this role, particularly in an SME or an SMB, what's this role going to do for your company? What are you hoping that this person's going to achieve? That way, when
Mhm.
I'm talking to people, I'm imagining myself as the manager or the president or the person leading this person, and I understand the objectives of the company. So it's a lot easier for me to connect. So, like you just said, if I go visit the company, if I talk to the president, if I talk to the people, it's so much easier to put myself in that seat. And if they're not willing to do
Exactly.
that, first of all, it's really weird that they would not let you do that. And secondly, well, it just doesn't let you do your job properly. So I fully understand and agree 100% with that situation.
Yeah. It was
Um,
unfortunate, but I did have to let them go in the end. Even though it was a very big placement, I could have made lots of money. At the end of the day, there was just too much risk. Even if I did find someone for them eventually, if ever it didn't work out with that person, which I got that vibe, that they
yeah.
were going to be very picky about things. It just wasn't worth the risk, so I had to let them go.
And I guess it's too early to say, but it'll be interesting to see who eventually lands there, right? Because that's a pretty important
Yeah.
position. It'll probably be announced on LinkedIn or whatever, and it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see. Hopefully, it's not one of the people you presented.
Well, I have contracts. If it is,
All
I'm going to
right.
charge them.
Exactly. Um, so Harmeen, I want to again back up a little bit. And so of course you're great at recruiting, you've got a passion for recruiting, you're an entrepreneur, you're organized, you've figured out how not to burn out. And I laugh because
Mhm.
it's not funny. It's actually stupid how a lot of entrepreneurs just burn themselves out. And it's stupid how, as human beings, we go, go, go till we fall over. And I laugh, but I shouldn't because I've felt a few times, even in my business, where I don't allow myself to take vacations enough and whatnot. And I know that one thing that you do that I love is you try to take one day, one working day a week off. Are you still doing that? Please say yes.
Yeah, well, generally, I would say Friday afternoons. I mean, I'm not working. It's
Okay.
very rare that you'll see me on a Friday afternoon log in unless it's something super urgent, I will. Friday mornings, I'll tend to just, do a quick hour, finish off
Record a
my week,
podcast.
record a podcast, finish up my week if there's anything that's, urgent to tend to. But yeah, no, I still kind of try my best to do like a 4-day work week. But it's something, Sean had actually posted recently about, instead of calling it work-life balance, to talk about integration
Yeah.
and finding ways on how to integrate, um, your personal life within your work week, right? I mean, this traditional 9 to 5. I am so over this traditional 9 to 5. So even if I do take Fridays for myself, I'll be very honest with you. I work a couple of hours on Sunday morning and I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Like I will literally just put in 1 or 2 hours to, okay, reset. Let's see what my week's going to look like. Do I have
Yeah.
any positions I need to post? Did
Yeah.
any CVs come in over the
Yep.
weekend that I might want to screen
Yep.
to book
Yep.
for Monday to take a bit of an advance? I mean, I feel like I'm very fortunate and lucky that I love my job so much. It
Yes.
doesn't feel like a job, right? I mean, it just feels like an extension of me, especially now that I have my own recruitment firm. So yeah, so I think it's really about finding, yes, that balance, but integration as Sean had brought it up recently. I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to be able to do something that we love, but it's also you can still burn out doing something you love. So it's
Yes.
important that you, like you said, you integrate things that like, relax, like you don't work on Friday afternoon, you take time for yourself, whatever it might be, whether it's an activity or
Yoga class on a
chilling out.
Wednesday morning at
Yeah.
9, whatever it
Yeah.
is,
That's
for
great.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Harmeen, I'd like this to be like we kind of have to wrap it up soon, which we could go for hours, but it's very, very interesting. Thank you so much, by the way. And I think the thing I want to end on is why recruiting? Like, and when I say that, I know you love it, I know you like doing it, but why do you think you love it? Have you thought of that? Have you ever said to yourself, what is it about recruiting that I like so much?
Well, there's a couple of aspects. I mean, so I fell into recruitment out of nowhere. I think
Okay,
that
so
I
you
don't
didn't
know if
even
I've
know. It was like, what's this stuff? You just
I was a travel agent and
okay.
I loved being a travel agent. And once
Okay.
again, travel agent, it's funny because it's very similar to recruitment in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of
It
research
is.
involved, there's a lot of
It
analysis,
is.
a lot of
It
research.
is.
There's matching the
Yeah.
perfect vacation
Yeah.
with the perfect couple, for example, or the
Yeah.
perfect family. Finding, looking at the family's requirements and
Yeah.
looking at the resorts they want to go to and making sure to make a match. So there was a lot of similarities there. And I literally walked into this multinational firm looking for another position. I was looking for something in administration or
Yeah.
sales. I wanted to do something different. And I'll never forget Lisa, who is still a good acquaintance of ours. She looked at me and she said, Harmeen, I think you should be working here. And I'm going to send you for an interview right away. Are you free right now?
Oh,
Because there's a
wow.
manager in Ville Saint Laurent that would like to meet you right now.
Okay.
And literally, I went from her office to the Ville Saint Laurent. I was in Pierrefonds, went to the Ville Saint Laurent office,
The
and
same thing you did to that other person.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So they hired me, and that's kind of how I fell into it.
Okay.
But the initial question was why do I
Well,
love
yeah.
it now?
Okay. So you fell into it. It's great. You love it. But what are the? Well, I think you said it a little bit. Is it because you get to match make people? Is it because you get to find you get to help businesses move forward? Like, what is it about recruiting? Where's the high? Where is it? Like,
I
I
think
love
it's
this.
all of that. I think it's
Okay.
helping people land their dream jobs and the
Yep.
amount of candidates that I've helped find an amazing position just in my 4 months now, I think that I've had Talencia. I have helped 11 people in 4 months find jobs. And I feel so grateful that this is my job. Like this is
Yeah.
like, what I get to do every single day. And I still get messages, oh my God, thank you so much for helping me find this job.
Oh,
And
that's
then
great.
vice versa with the clients. Clients as well are very
Yep.
they're very grateful towards me to be able to find them good talent. Uh, I have a good judge of character. I think that's really important as a recruiter as well to make sure that you're making that good match. So I think that that's kind of what it is yes,
What
helping
that's what
businesses.
brings a passion, right? And you just said
Yeah.
something there. Sorry, I know we're supposed to end on this, but let's just go a little bit further. Let's take 2 minutes more. Um, you said I'm a good judge of character. Okay, that's a loaded statement, right?
That is a loaded
What
statement.
you got to break? Yeah, I can't. We can't end on
But
that.
we're not all perfect, right? Because I did have a bad experience not long ago. So I mean, you
Okay.
can't be all perfect, right? Sometimes you think you have a good judge of character. You meet the candidate, you're like, this is the one, and then the client meets the candidate, the HR, the manager, they go through a three-person
Yeah.
interview. Everyone loves this candidate, and 3 weeks later, we realize, oh crap, we all messed up here, and this is not a good
This is
candidate.
not
And even
okay.
after doing a reference and a background check, and unfortunately, we're dealing with human beings at the end of the day
Yes.
in
So what
recruitment,
you're
right?
saying, judge a
So,
character, is it's your gut feeling too. It's like this
yeah,
feels right, and then so you have all the very sort of traditional parameters that the gates they have to go through. Education, experience, style,
yeah,
personality. But then sometimes it still falls over, right? It's still like, oh my God, like we didn't see this, right? But
yes.
do you is there, and I don't want to say this, it's not nice, but do you ever notice some people's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like they totally change, right? It's like they
Well,
go
that's a
somewhere and there's almost
situation I
like
had
a,
recently,
oh, okay,
unfortunately,
yeah.
that the candidate really just like won us all over. Myself, the hiring manager, the CFO, the HR, won like four people over in the interview process. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, we realized multiple absences, not showing up on time,
Oh wow.
not giving reasons why, sick days all the time, and then just realizing, okay, wait a second, they were obviously going through something, and we didn't catch it at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I had
yeah,
one candidate many years ago who was stealing from the company afterwards. Like, oh my God.
I've heard
Oh,
stories like that.
yeah.
Luckily, I haven't had that. But I do want to end on one little note. I mean, I don't know
Let's
if you
end
have
on
any other
something positive.
questions, but yeah, one little positive note. But I mean, because you are also asking about why, what I love about the recruitment
Yes.
aspect. More recently, I would say possibly in the last like 2 years, one factor that has come up a lot is DE&I, so diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
It is something that, as we see right now, it's very unfortunate being dismantled in the US. They're completely closing down departments. They don't believe in it whatsoever. I am a big advocate for it, especially here in Montreal. There's a lot of minority groups, and throughout
Yep.
my 13, 14 years in recruitment, I have dealt with multiple companies that have had no shame even in discriminating when asking me for, when telling me the requirements they were looking for to hire
Oh,
somebody.
really? What do
I
you mean?
have
They'd be like,
had
we don't want women or we don't want, okay.
exactly, I have
Wow.
had that happen where they tell me, we're looking for a receptionist, a little petite blonde would do well, I've gotten those kind of comments. Or just recently, when maybe one of the last little anecdotes I'll give you, when we're talking about memorable recruitment hires, I helped a company with a diverse hire that they all white company, not a single diverse
Yeah.
minority group within this
Yeah.
organization. They weren't very big, maybe about 15 people company,
Yep.
but still here
Yep.
in Montreal.
Yep.
And I had presented three candidates, and the one that I knew was going to get it, and she was the most qualified, was a minority hire, a diverse
Yep.
hire. And the client, after all the interview process, the candidate met myself, met the president's assistant, and the controller.
Yep.
And everybody agreed she's wonderful. The president called me and said, I know everyone says she's wonderful, but I'm really struggling with my own bias, with my
Wow.
own opinion of this person and the minority group that
Yeah.
that this person comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, I was mortified because I was almost like, hello, like I'm a minority group. Like these clients, they almost don't realize that, okay, yes, I'm perfectly bilingual. I'm born and raised here, but I
Yeah.
am Indian at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And I remember having to like sit her down and have the conversation and say, there are so many benefits if you only knew the benefits of hiring a diverse hire
So did they
and how
hire
much
her?
innovate they hired her.
Okay.
And you know what?
She's
The
doing
the,
great.
the next message I got from her was not only thank you for the hire,
Yeah.
but it was thank you for the perspective shift. And
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for opening my eyes.
But you
And it
know
was
what,
like
Harmeen?
for
I
me
think it
such a
was,
wonderful moment.
yeah, I think, it's okay. Some people have natural biases that can happen, and it's good that this person went to you and admitted it because you were
Yes,
able to say, listen, because just the fact that that person said that, she or he was asking you, push me over the edge because I know this is a bad bias, right? That's
exactly.
good. That's great.
And the
It's funny.
thankfulness at the end for the perspective shift. That was just like for me, I was like, wow, and this is what
Yeah.
I do, what I'm doing right now, because I've managed to, change her mind about certain things. And now
Yeah.
she's open-minded about stuff. So it was really great.
Well, one of my proudest hires was with a client who is religious Jewish, who hired a religious Muslim person, and they get along great.
That's
I'm
amazing. I
like,
love
oh
it. I
man, I
love
love this.
hearing it. I'm a big
Yeah,
advocate for it. So
and it's a wonderful thing. So, hey, look, Harmeen, thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll do this again because I think we could talk for another 3 hours. You see, it
yeah.
wasn't as hard as you thought, was it?
No,
It was a
no,
lot
it
of
was my
fun.
very first podcast. So thank you
You
so
did
much for having
amazing.
me on.
Yeah, no, you did great. So thank you everyone for listening. If you wanna reach out to Harmeen, she's in Montreal. She's got an agency called Talencia. You guys know where to reach me. So thank you very much, and we'll all see you soon. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Remember to keep
Thanks,
watching.
Paul.
Ask the right questions. Thanks, Harmeen.